Well, hello and welcome to this week's Material Mondays. I thought I would come and say hello rather than just seeing my hands as we work. In today's video, what I'm going to be showing you is some of the tools that I use for leather. They are tools that you can use for other things, so look around your stash, look at the things that you might have already. The other thing you probably need to do is, before you go out and decide to purchase something, you might be able to get that particular tool at a hardware store, and I'll give you an example in the video. So we're going to look at some of the other leathers that I've been working with, and we're going to be looking at some of the tools, and at the end I'll try and fit in using one of the tools in a mini project, and I will continue next week, maybe for the next couple of weeks, just looking at the tools that I'm using and some of the things that you can do with them on the leather. But again, if you're mixed media, you can use some of the tools you already have. And yeah, so let's get on. I'm excited to show you some of the other leathers and how I work with them. So welcome. So here is just a small selection of the leather that I have. It's and they were all brought as bags of scraps. I think this is a combination. Plus, I mean, I've obviously used some, but I brought 3 bags over time, and they come in, yeah, like a bag like this. So let me show you some of the pieces that I've got. So the one that you might recognize that you've seen me work on are these tan colored pieces of leather. Now they're fairly thick, but they're smooth on one side, and working with the leather burner, they actually come out pretty nice. And you've seen examples in the other video. I'll leave a link to show that if you want to go back and look, you can go back and look. The only thing with these is when I use the stamps, I'll show you the tools afterwards, I'll just show you the leather first. It doesn't really take the stamps as well. It does mark it, but it's not how I imagined it would be, and maybe it's the stamps that I'm using. So this is the tan leather, and so it all just came as bits like this. I guess they're used for shoes, for bags and other pieces. But if you're into making different things, there's lots of different things that you can make with them, like jewellery, or any other small thing, wall attachments that can go on wall hangings and things like that. And the other thing with working with leathers is you've got to be mindful of the kind of climate that you live in, because not all climates are, you have to keep them cool and not in a humid condition, because you can develop like mildew on some of the leathers. I've been lucky in my studio, it's not, the temperature is kind of constant, and I keep it airy. So this is another one. This is a really nice soft leather, and it's red. And what I did with this one is I was going to use them to make mini books, really small mini books. And so I cut up a load of them, and then my attention went on to something else. But I think I still might make them, because these make nice little, so if you're making a mini book, you can make one with a chain on it, so it can be like jewellery. So yeah, I'd got that far, and then I got involved in the burning the leather. So that's this particular leather. It's really soft. I guess the shoes, maybe a handbag, I don't know, but it's really, really soft, and I love the smell of leather. Yeah. So with all your supplies, I would recommend that every now and again you just check on it just to see, to make sure that everything is okay. The other type is this. I only had a few bits of this. It's a tan colour but darker. I was going to make again mini books with it, but I only have a few pieces. Have I got some in here? No, that's a whole totally different. So yeah, again, I've just separated the leather that I've, you know, got in the bags, and seen, just put them in their categories. So this is a nice soft leather, but it's thicker, and the same with this. So these would be nice to mark, you know, burn into them or mark them with one of the tools that I'm going to show you. Okay, so that's that. Then we have a thicker, darker leather, and again I was going to use these for mini books, or I might use them in terms of, like, you know, making a jewellery, making a little necklace, or you can cut them to shape and make earrings. And again, if you're not into the jewellery making, you can use the leather pieces for other things. So you've got book binding, again, attachment to art pieces, if you're doing anything in mixed media. Okay, my favourite is coming up. So this again is another thick leather, but it's got some sort of, you know, you can see the grain in it. I don't know what animals these were sourced from, so I couldn't really say this is. And it's funny, you never really it's only since I've said that I just imagined, okay, you know, yeah, it's from the hide of some, you know, it's usually a cow, I think, or who knows, but that's that one. Oh yeah, so my favourite one, I don't know how they do these ones, are these. These are very thin. Now these made ideal book covers, and that's really the only thing that I've used it for, and they came in these pieces. So again, some of these pieces can be quite large when you think about the scraps. So, you know, unless you're making something specific on a large scale, you know, having a selection of leather, a selection of pieces, maybe more than you need. I mean, as I say, I'm just even thinking of a journal cover that would make a really lovely journal cover. I've never thought about this for this, but yeah, I might actually think of doing that. I've got a large enough piece, one of those perpetual journal covers, so that I can then reuse it. So I'd cut these bits, and I'd cut up some smaller bits for some mini journals that I wanted to make into book necklaces. And then we've got, this just came as is, so it's this white strip, as you can see, and then it's been dyed, so we've just got pieces like that. And then what I went on and did is to cut them up again, to either use just to play with and practice, and just to see what kind of look I could get. I found that burning into these was a lot harder. Stamping into them, it was just making a lot of noise, but I mean, obviously there's a way that you can do it, and I'll show you. And then the other thing I've got is, this was a leather bag that I had, like a suede. So I wasn't using the bag anymore, and I thought, let me see if I can use the leather and create something. Again, now I'm thinking with these large pieces I can create some journal covers, or they can be part of a wall hanging. The other thing that came with these are a series of what you can use as thongs. So these came in all the different types of leather. So I have used it in one of the ones that I've made. You would have seen that before. So this is how some of the pieces then are eventually going to look. I've just got to spend time sourcing the beading and the jewellery, but you get a really nice, you can get a really nice effect. So I've used the thongs in that way, and here's a closer look if you didn't get to see this one. So this is the paler leather that I have burned into, but the white leather, it was a lot harder to leave a mark. You had to leave it longer on the leather to mark it. So that's the leather. I'll show you now some of the tools that you can use. Okay, so now I'm going to look at some of the tools that I have, and I'll go through them, and yeah, you can see what you've got if you, again, if you're going to use leather, some of the tools that you might already have. So I've got awls, so I use this when I'm bookbinding, but they make a good tool for poking the leather, poking holes like so. Again, just small holes, so if I was doodling on a piece of leather I could do that. It does work on some of the softer leather. Let's see, find a piece that, yeah, so it works equally well on some of the other pieces of leather as well. And then I've got this is I inherited this from my dad. Okay, so this one makes just, it's like a line, because if you're the edge of it is, the ends of it is flat, it tapers up to the tip. So when you're using it on the leather, it would make like some dashes if you wanted to make dashes as part of a pattern. And we can come in closer. So it's useful to maybe have look at the smaller pieces you have and play with the tools that you have. Yeah, so that can make some interesting dashes. So this is that tool. Okay, the other tool I have, I think I got it in a haberdashery, and I think it's to do with either stitching or paper making. But I found, not paper making, but you know, making those holes in the paper. But I found that this makes a nice pattern on the leather. So again, in terms of doodling and making some marks, you've got some very delicate marks you can make, and if you push down heavier on it, that's the kind of mark you get. So it's just like a, I think you use it like that to score the paper, but again, using it on leather, you can get some nice marks on there. Yeah, so again, so that's why it's important to look at the supplies you already have. Now these things, I don't even know what they're called. Again, it was something that my dad had, and when I saw them I thought, oh, they'd be interesting. I was my dad was a collector, and I just, you know, when he passed, it was just like, there were so many things that I didn't realise that were connected to creativity that he used to like to make things. So these are, it says wear goggles. So one's 1.5 millimeters. They make circles, 3 millimeters and 2.5. Now, so with this, you'd either need a hammer or a mallet. Actually, so I've got this small hammer, but I'll show you the mallets that I've got as well. So I'm using a self-healing mat, so I don't need to do anything different. So they literally just make, and they make noise, circles on the surface. So you can see the marks they make, the 3 millimeter, the 2.5 and the 1.5. But again, making a leather project and doing some embellishment, they would actually you know, they could be actually quite effective. I must do this one now. There. So again, you know, they make some interesting marks. The other place that I would use these would be in clay, because I use clay, so I would use these to make marks in the clay as well. So again, looking at things that that can have a dual use for me. On the thinner leather, I wasn't too impressed with the marks that these made. I mean, it can still make a mark, but because it is quite a dark leather, you're not necessarily going to see it as well. I need to do it on this surface. I'll come in a minute. So you can see. So that's not too bad. So it's still, you know, made a mark, and it can be quite a nice mark if it's, you know, some small details that you're trying to do in the leather, or you've got some small pieces like this. Okay, so let us come out again, all this backwards and forwards. So the tool that you would have seen me use already is my wood burning. This is my wood burning tool, and it comes with several different heads. I'll show you one here, and with each head there's a variety of ways that you can use it. And it is just to make sure that you try and use, when I'm doing it, because I will do one pattern and then move on. But I try and use it in a variety of different ways. So I not only use the head itself there, I use the barrel here, because this gets really hot. All of this gets hot basically. So the edge here, the edge of this, if possible, the sides, the tip. Yeah, so you get more use. So what came with it are these different attachments. This is it came with 6 attachments, so I've got 2 sets here. I was looking for some more decorated ones, but these were the only ones that I could get here. Okay, so we've got, fingers are getting in the way. So we've got, they've got a little, they screw in and screw out, and I usually use, you can't touch this, unless you're letting it go cold in between. I use one of my jewellery tools if I'm like, you know, just swapping over, and I'll just take it out like with this. But it comes with all these different heads, and it's just really good to get yourself familiar with them and how you can use them so that you can get the most out of them. So yeah, they came with 6, so it was like, I think it was these 6, and then I managed to get this one, which gives you like a flower design. That one came with a knife, so if you wanted to cut, you could. A blade, I mean. Then, yeah, as you can see here, this was bent like that. It's got a really fine one for fine detail, and I sometimes use those to create my faces. And then, as you can see, all of these, so well, these two are practically the same. Yeah, so I'm on the lookout for some more, and then you have to be careful with some of the tips, because, you know, if it gets really hot, or depending on what you're using it for, it can they can bend. So that's the wood burning tool that I'll use. I'll leave links to all of them in my profile, and I've also got an Amazon store. You can, oh yeah, here's the 6th one. So this was an unusual one, and I normally use it to create, they're like teardrop shapes. Yeah, so let's move on to some of the other tools. So I'll just keep them all in here. It's my, when I'm doing framing for my, so you can't even see, can you? Sorry about that. So this is where I keep them, and I use, this is all my framing stuff in here. Alright, so, and when I'm using the leather, I have, this is just a little tea light holder, and I leave it in there and drop the hot ones rather than leaving them about, because that's an accident waiting to happen. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so mallets, and I mentioned before, before you go to a craft store and purchase a mallet, maybe go to your hardware store. So I went to a craft store, and this cost me £15. It's fairly, yeah, it's they're about the same. This is slightly lighter. Then I went to the hardware store, and this cost me £3. So I could have saved some money. It's both, they're both made out of plastic. As I say, this one's slightly lighter, but they're going to do a similar sort of job. The other thing that I brought, well, the other thing that this came with, no, it didn't come with actually, I had to buy it separately, was this, and it's supposed to deaden the sound so it's not as loud. And you might be wondering what you would use it with, and I've got this lettering and number set I brought, and it comes with, I brought this one there, sorry, what size, 5/16. So the letter, the words that they make are a reasonable sort of size. This is one that I stamped earlier, So yeah, it's a reasonable sort of size. So depend on what you're making. If you're making like a leather, a cuff, a wrist cuff, or you know, neck belt, there you can actually see them. Yeah, and it comes in this case, very heavy wooden case, and I've just added this around the edges because I think it may have been fraying. So that's what you need the this for, to deaden the sound, and we can experiment to see. But at the time when I was doing it, when I was buying them, I was just like, yes, I have to have it. Was like, I have to have it. I have to have everything that comes with it. So that's how it sounds on this. You can actually hear the difference, can't you? I've just done that B the wrong way round. It's a slight difference, but it kind of deadens the sound. And I'm going to try it again with the other mallet. So this is the one I brought in the hardware store. The other thing I'm going to need to do again is go over at the end of each one. I wrote what the letters are, just so that that's loud, isn't it? Well, it's only me. It's not as if, yeah. It, as I said, it just deadens the sound a bit. But there isn't any difference. We can come in again. See, there isn't much difference in, these were the hardware store mallets, and that's the craft store one. So yeah, you know, always check your hardware store, because sometimes some of the supplies that you may be using, like even masking tape, is cheaper to get it at a hardware store than it is a craft store. And they do, you know, the different types of repositioning one, or the painter's one, or the one that you can use in your art journal. Okay, so these I had been using on some of the leather, but I hadn't really got into it because I wasn't sure what I was going to be using it for. I just knew that I needed I needed these in my life, and I needed a mallet. This whole set, this is what I felt I needed in my life. And what else would I use it for? Yeah, I would just kind of potentially just use it with the leather. Let me try one of the lighter leathers. And that's why it's important. I mean, unless, you know, I mean, really look at the kind of, look at what you have in your supplies, and then, you know, like, especially if you want to try it. If you want to try it and you haven't, you know, it's not necessarily something you are like, yes, I've got to, this is something I really want to do, then you may know somebody who's got, that may allow you to use their art supplies so that you can try it out. Yeah, so in all the leathers it's actually not too bad. I think maybe I just wasn't ready for it back then when I brought it. I knew I needed it and I was going to use it eventually. Yeah. So I can now think of lots of things, lots of nice encouraging words that I can put, you know, on these leathers, and the small mini books that I'm going to make, it would make some nice, you know, addition to the piece itself. Okay, so there's one more that I have anyway. There's probably other tools that you can, you know, get and use. If you know, I'm not an expert in working with leather, far from it. I'm just experimenting and playing, and that's what I encourage you to do. Experiment and play, and you never know what will work with each other. And the other thing is, you know, just giving yourself time to use a particular supply. Because I'm a mixed media artist, it means that I'm going to want to explore and try different supplies. And that's what I think anyway. So this is a leather punch, and this one is an antique. It was inherited from my father. Both of these actually. This one I'm gonna need to try and do some repairs because it's stuck, but they both punch holes in paper. Again, because of the humidity here, lots of metal in particular can rust, but this one's an Old Faithful. Yeah, so my dad used to use these when he was creating, he used to make men's shoes. And so this turns and clips into place, and you can, for leather belts, for cutting the holes in belts. I've just got to take out there's the leather pieces that was, a few of the pieces that have got stuck in there, so I've just got to press them out. But I don't need to do that now, do I? I was using this, it looks like I was using this on paper as well. And then look around and see what other pokey tools you may have. I've got one, I think this is a quilling tool, but I don't, and it came free in a magazine. But again, this can make some interesting marks on the leather. It's actually quite cool. So if you're thinking, I like doodling, what else can I doodle on that's not paper? You can stitch, doodle, you know, doodle while you stitch, or you can doodle it on the leather and make some interesting marks. There you see. So they're all the tools. I hope you may have recognized some of them. You may have some of them in your supply kit, but yeah, experiment, have fun with what you've got. And next week I will be showing you some of the other pieces that I've made up, and I may be working with one of these tools on them. So yeah, I will list all of the supplies in the description. So if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so, and I will see you again next time.